Hey guys, today I want to go over something pretty cool you could do with the DeepMind 12 because of its FX options. You can basically make a very good emulation of a string machine. So a string machine is basically an organ style synth where it's a divide down oscillator based synth with a very interesting ensemble unit where it's multiple chorus units that are paralleled up and then summed out. And that's one of the cool things you can do with this DeepMind 12 in the FX section. So, string machines were pretty popular back in the 70s, especially in Berlin school music, and I just love the sound. I've not really gotten good emulations out of any other synths but the DeepMind 12. Let's give it a listen really quick before we get started. Sounds fantastic. Alright, to get started, I'm just going to go ahead and go to a patch I don't want, hold down the program button, and hold down compare, which gives us our init patch. We can listen to that. It's a really interesting init patch on the DeepMind. It actually has some sustain, almost any other, or not sustain, but release. Almost any other synth I've used does not have any release on the init patch. It's usually just completely zero attack and release. You just basically get like a gated organ style sound. So the first section that we want to work on is the oscillator section. So by default, the sawtooth wave and the pulse modulation wave are enabled, and that's exactly what we're going to want for this. So we also want some pitch mod. We'll get to that in a minute, but we'll go ahead and set it already. Pitch mod is by default controlled by LFO1. So let's give it a little bit of pitch mod. It's about the first graduation here on the little lines. So, and then for PWM you want to set it about halfway to 5. And then on oscillator 2, we're going to use it basically as a sub-oscillator, kind of like on the Juno, because it basically is a Juno. It's a Juno on steroids. We want to turn it all the way up. So let's give that a listen. That's starting to sound a little bit better. Alright, the next section we want to work on is the VCF. So the filter, and we want to take the frequency and turn it down to around 8. So let's give that a listen. Alright, the problem here is we have velocity sensitivity happening on the VCA. It's pretty easy to disable. Just press the edit button on the VCA, find the parameter that says velocity sense on the display, turn it to 0. So, string machines didn't have velocity sensing, at least none to my knowledge. So let's listen to that. No velocity sensing. No matter how hard you press the key or soft you press it, as long as you get a MIDI trigger in there, it will sound the same. If you want to have more expressive playing and make it sound more like a real string section or something, you might want to add some velocity sensing to it, or some aftertouch. But in this case, it's an old string machine, so we're not going to do that. So the next section we want to play with is the envelope and the actual amplifier envelope, which is your default one right here. It's already lit, VCA. It's pretty cool because you got 3 envelopes on this guy. So we want to shape the envelope, so I'm going to go ahead and press it. And the cool thing about that, if you press it, it'll show you the envelope on the screen, and you can get the parameters that I'm using exactly. So for the attack, I'm going to set it to about 170. Doesn't have to be exact. You can even play with these values to get a better envelope. It sounds more like a string swell. String machines usually had an envelope section that was not really programmable by the user. It just gave a kind of a swell sound. And for the release, we want to set that to about 190. Alright, so let's give that a quick listen. getting there. Kind of sounds like an accordion. It's a little weird. Alright, so now I talked about the LFO controlling the pitch mod, and we want to get a little bit of vibrato in there. Delayed vibrato, which is really cool because the LFO lets us do that on this synth, just like a Juno. So we want to go up to the LFO section. I'm going to edit it. You press edit. You can go up to shape. I'm going to use data entry slider and turn it all the way up. As you can see, the LED for the LFO is actually moving. You can see that. And I'm going to switch it to sine. Sine sounds nice in this case. And then I want the rate of that to be around 154, which is a little above halfway. Alright, let's listen to that. You can hear that vibrato in there. But we don't want it to trigger immediately. So we're going to use the delay time. I'm going to turn the delay time to around 5. I think if we go into program, it'll tell us what the delay time is. It doesn't actually tell me. Oh, there it is. It's on the very bottom. So at the 5 setting on the actual graduations here, LFO kicks in about 3 seconds, so we could do that. So here, let's wait for 3 seconds. There it is. It really fades in. It's really nice. I don't know much about how that happens, like if you can set a fade in for it or if you can just have it trigger immediately. I haven't been through a lot of the menus for the LFO. I do use it a lot, but I just use the base settings for it and change the shape. So it would be interesting if you could change a fade in for that or have it kick in immediately. I believe the Novation, like the Mini Nova or the Nova synths, you can set the LFO to kick in a specific way, like fade in, kick in immediately, things like that. But it sounds fine here for what we're doing. So the section that's going to get us all the way to the sound that we want is the effects section. And this has a very interesting effects section, mainly because you can load 4 effects at once, but you can also route them in different ways. And the more interesting routing, and I'm going to go ahead and pick up the camera here so I can show it to you. The rest of the settings, I don't really have to show you the screen because they're all physical values. Not too much menu diving at all, other than changing the LFO shape. Let's go ahead and move that up. Alright, you can see this. Alright, let's make sure you can see that. Okay. What we want to do is go up to the setting where we see the actual routing, and you can use the wheel or you can use the data entry slider, but we want the one that basically parallels into a single effect. So 1, 2, and 3 parallel into a single effect. And that's going to give us the magic of a string machine. The thing with a string machine is you normally have multiple choruses that are paralleled and then summed to the output. And you get a pretty cool sound that way because you have different choruses that are basically set for different speeds, the actual chorusing speed. And that's how you get that unique sound. We don't want any kind of dry sound, so on the send here, we want to switch it to basically insert. So what happens there is it just sends it right from the synth to the FX unit, then out to the output without including any of the original sound. Alright, so excuse the jerkiness of my hand, but this is the best I can do right now. Maybe I can set this down a little. Let's see if I can set it down here. Alright, yeah, you can kind of see what we're doing here. So the first slot that we're going to want to do, actually the first 3 slots, they're all going to be choruses. I'm going to use the data entry slider. It's a little easier to get them in quickly. So it's about 6, 7. It's about 7 on the entry slider to get it to the chorus. So there we go, chorus and chorus. And for the last one, I'm going to go ahead and use the ambient reverb or an ambient reverb. And it just adds a little more fullness to it. So, not really fullness, I'm sorry. More of like just Ambience, actually, huh? Just like it says on the box. So, for the mix levels on all the courses, we're going to set them all the way up to 100. And for the levels of the choruses, we want to set the first one to 100. So the max is 150. That's going to actually give us a distorted output at your standard line levels, so let's not do that. The next one we want to set to about 75. And the next one we want to set to 65. Alright. And then for that should do it. Alright, let's give it a listen. It's not going to sound exactly the right levels yet for each one of them or speeds because we haven't set any of the choruses. It sounds pretty lush though. It's pretty awesome. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is for the first chorus, we want to set the speed to 0.2, which is the default. We're fine there. Let's go to the second chorus, FX2. We're going to set the speed to 0.8. Okay, perfect. Alright, so we're going to set the next FX to 0.5. Alright, perfect. And now we're going to go to FX4, which is our ambient reverb. And we want to set the delay, or the decay, sorry, not delay, to 4.4. Alright, let's go ahead and exit that out, and let's give it a listen. Up an octave. It sounds just great. Especially once that alpha kicks in, there's this little bit of vibrato. This is almost like an analog style vibrato that just kind of sounds out of tune, like the Oscillator wants to, just go out of tune, but it's great. Alright, and that's how you emulate a string machine using the Behringer DeepMind 12. Hope that helps somebody.